Call to order for the Transportation Advisory Committee for Oregon City for April 16th. And Kim, would you please call the roll?
Yep. Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Atkinson?
Here.
Mr. LaSalle?
Here.
Mr. McEnroth?
Here.
Mr. Jessic is absent. Mr. Lyman?
Here.
Mr. Tom?
Here. Okay. Next item would be approval of minutes. Does anybody have any changes or anything they want to do with them besides approve them?
I move approval of the minutes of March 19, 2019.
I second it.
It's been moved and second to approve it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. Agenda analysis. Does anybody need to want to make changes to the agenda or bring something forward or push it back or otherwise alter it? Hearing nothing. Citizens' comments. As the citizen who wants to make comments filled out his comment sheet?
I will fill one out after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you please be seated and state your name and address for the record, please?
Thank you, Paul Edgar. I'm from the Kenema neighborhood area of Oregon City. I said a little bit before the meeting started, but let's put it this way. The ODOT proposed value pricing program, which is tolling on our roads, has proposed that they put a tolling station on the Abernathy Bridge. And one of the most critical issues of this tolling is they foresee, and this is the professionals in the transportation, that there's a significant level of diversion that will result from this. And the diversion will people that will try to find any other way to not pay a toll, incidental toll. And most of that diversion, if they're trying to go back and forth across the river bridge, the Willamette River, where else are they going to go across if they're right in this area? They're not going to swim. So, and they're usually going to be in their cars, so they're going to have to find a way to get across. But the key problem that comes with this is this traffic that could result into downtown Oregon City. And I've been a proponent of the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. And we take the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, it could bring in 3,000 visitors a day. And if we bring in 3,000 visitors, maybe 70 to 80% of those will come in cars. Right now, we have inadequate transit. So if we take that number of cars and we say that there's going to be maybe 2 or 2.5 people per car on average, we have a lot of people coming in. Where do they park? Then the next element of this equation that you guys have to take a look at is that they'll go walk up and they're going to have to find a place to park. They can't park in the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, so they're going to walk up to Main Street and Highway 99 and press the plunger to get a crosswalk. That's about 50 to 55 seconds on average. Highway 99 is a strategic urban freight route. I was on the Clackamas County Advisory Committee doing the plan, the STP. And this is one of the critical routes, and maybe 3,000 jobs are at stake if that road closes down. And a lot of investment. This is critical to Clackamas County, it's critical to the state of Oregon. So we've got these people coming in, traffic coming around, and literally, where do they park? And not a plan. Okay, so what I've been trying to bring to the attention is, and this committee is probably the absolute one of the best committees to come along and start a process of review, a statistical review, where you look at this problem and say, okay, how are we going to address it? What can we do? One of the options is literally has been to try to allow people to walk along. The old plan from, about 15 years ago was to build a path on top of the sewer line that goes under the bluff. and maybe a 6 or 8 foot wide path and bring it all the way down to Clackamas Park, and maybe put a parking garage down there on the urban renewal owned property. And I was on the Urban Renewal Commission, and so I understand a lot of the properties we have, but that property is owned by the city's urban renewal district, and it's the properties just to the north of McDonald's, the 2 lots there. But we've got to have an open discussion, and we have to get a head start on it, because one of the issues was that they were talking about in an update at the City Commission Works session last Tuesday, was they'll wait till they have a critical event before they make adjustments. Well, if you wait till you have a critical event,
Tuesday.
the head of the planning for the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, Laura Turway, and the head of the nonprofit representing the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. There was the 3 of them that were reporting to the City Commission. And normally, if we're trying to find a solution and we're trying to push rocks uphill in a governmental world, this can be 3 to 5 years. And if we wait until catastrophe takes place, we're all in, we should stick our heads in the sand. So my request of you guys and of the city is that we get a head start on this as fast as we can. I would love to contribute. I asked Laura and I asked these people, I said, do we have a committee set up to evaluate all of these opportunities and options and what we could do just on transportation, parking, and how we can figure this out, what we're going to do? And she said, no. And I said, oh, then maybe I should come here and make a statement to you guys and say, it's time that we figure this out. And I don't know if the City Commission's not doing it, if the Planning Commission is not doing it, maybe the Transportation Committee should be put it on your agenda and try to figure out what are the impacts, what are the best things we could be doing, and be open-minded, because I'm telling you, this is a serious implication. It could devastate all businesses in downtown Oregon City. It could virtually bankrupt them and close the whole thing down. And there are some things that could be done, and I don't want to be the first person to mention some of the things, so I would rather see you guys do it. I could contribute if you ever got to a point you wanted to have somebody do it, but I hope that you think it out. I hope the city thinks it out, because I believe this is a big issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Does the city want to respond, or I have, okay, never mind. I don't know.
There's no response
They
required.
don't, yeah, they don't usually respond to citizen
Okay.
comments.
Never mind, sorry. First time I've had that happen.
Vance,
Yes.
would it be possible to have at a later date, to have a bit of a discussion on this when we can gather some mapping maybe from the GPS people and kind of see where and how these things might unfold?
Yeah, we can certainly go with our GIS folks and get whatever mapping or maps we need that we want to look at. And I think the answer, Henry, is yes, we can certainly set something like that up. Are you thinking about this group?
Initially, yeah, it'd be good.
Okay.
And the other thing is, just as a statement, is having seen what's going on the bridge most afternoons from like 3 in the afternoon on, my guess is that West Lynn is going to be very heavily affected also, because from what I can tell, there's traffic stacked up now to at least I-205 trying to get down and go south or north on McLaughlin during those events. So assuming that anybody detours from a tolling booth, there's that already existing.
Certainly.
Well, it's also southbound in the morning commute. Backs way, way back up north,
Yeah.
almost every morning.
This isn't the only proposed toll section, I believe. I believe they're looking at tolling all the places where they widened from Stafford up to, well, up to Clackamas River, or maybe it's a little bit further beyond that.
I've seen various options, and the one that I have heard as being the leading one is the bridge, because it's the bottleneck. But, it's too early to, say definitively that that's what it is. So anyway,
Henry, I have a quick question. So does Oregon City's Public Works staff have some of the maps and some of the data that the Paul was talking about? So we could look at that and see whether that gives us some specific direction we may or may not choose to go?
I'm not 100% sure, John. I do know that, yes, the city does have our mapping system and maps with traffic counts, I believe. So a lot of that, of what you just mentioned, I believe is certainly available.
Yeah, so if staff put together a package at the next or the following meeting, that would just get started. We could have the same background, looking at the same data.
It appears everyone else's comment. I just wanted to make a comment regarding this topic. I serve on the downtown TDM committee. There's an advisory committee that the city's organized that started, I think, in January of this year. And I think our second meeting is in May. So they're already discussing this at that committee, looking at the Willamette Falls Legacy Project and I-205 and all these, transportation issues and how transit, biking, walking, all these different elements can be used. So there's a committee that the city has organized that I'm on to do this. So I just want to make you aware that is in process.
And Ray, that's the Transportation Demand Management?
Correct, TDM, yeah. And I can get a contact for staff, from city staff, forget who her name is, but she emailed me to organize the committee.
Yeah.
And what organization is this?
The city committee. It's organized by somebody, I forget her name, but I was invited to be on that committee representing CCC, Clackamas Community College. And there's a lot of downtown businesses and different interests from downtown are on this committee to look at the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, I-205, and all these things we just discussed. So there is an effort to discuss this.
I think I'd like to get some more information from that committee.
I can
Present it to
details.
this committee.
Certainly would be helpful.
It's supposed to be somebody's going to come and do a presentation eventually. We tried to get it on the agenda for a couple of months ago, and the timing wasn't right for them. So it is something that we're in the works of having somebody come and do a presentation for you guys.
Eventually, it doesn't work for me.
So
Really, I mean, that could be 2 years from now.
No, it's in the near future.
Yeah. And I also attended that initial meeting that you were at, Ray, and plan on attending the upcoming one, which is pretty soon.
Yeah, it's in May.
Yeah, so.
And I didn't make the first meeting. I was on vacation in January when the first one's happening.
Right.
But I'm bringing emails, so.
We need more information from ODOT. I mean, they're the proponent, aren't they?
At this point, I don't know that ODOT actually knows exactly what they want to do. Everything I've heard and seen says that they are looking for the Federal Highway Administration to weigh in. Also, probably because this is a legislature-driven thing, that they may not know much until after the legislative session is over and they get some more direction.
Well, my opinion is that the title, the name of this organization is the Transportation Advisory Committee. And if we don't know about organizations like this is happening, something's wrong with the communications somewhere. We should be involved in those kinds of discussions, deliberations, instead of all of a sudden finding it out almost by accident. That's my comment.
Well, I'm sure that with that, one of an ODOT person on the project would be happy to talk to us and tell us where they stand exactly.
Should we arrange for someone from ODOT to come and?
So it's interesting you mentioned that. I spoke with Henry before the meeting, and ODOT is planning on having a work session right here in the chamber May 1st, and it's going to be before the commission meeting. John thought it started at 6 o'clock, but he wanted me to confirm that, and I intend on letting you folks know exactly when that is. John highly recommended if you guys could make it, it would be a very good opportunity to hear what ODOT has to say and possibly provide some of your comments and input. So please mark your calendars on that. And if you would like, I could have Kim, send you an email reminder on that if you wish.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We have a new business. It appears we have a presentation on bicycle and pedestrian improvement associated by chance with I-205 widening. And it appears that Julian is here to present it. So if you would come up to the microphone and say your name for the record and who you represent, and then have at it.
Great, thank you. My name is Jillian Detweiler. I'm the Executive Director of the Street Trust. We're a nonprofit. We do work throughout Oregon. We advocate for walking, biking, and transit. It should be safe and convenient. We have education, encouragement, and advocacy programs. So we teach kids bike safety education. We do the annual Bike More Challenge is our biggest encouragement program. And we have been involved in legislation on the state, local, and regional levels for almost 30 years. I really appreciate your time tonight. It was a delight getting here. I had never ridden the elevator before, and it kind of threw Google Maps for a loop. And I will say that Paul's comments are not a bad setup to what I want to bring to your attention, as well as, the discussion you just had regarding 205 and congestion pricing, and, maybe an upcoming presentation from ODOT. ODOT has a bicycle advisory committee, and they run projects by them. And the Street Trust was contacted by a couple of members of that committee because they really were disappointed in what ODOT is proposing for bicycles and pedestrians as part of the I-205 99E to Stafford Road improvements. That project will provide, 7 miles of new lanes in each direction. But the spirit of the state's bike bill is that when we make these kind of improvements for automobiles, we should also be improving conditions for cyclists and for pedestrians. And I think particularly as Oregon City is about to have a major regional attractor, you want to be positioned for people to get here all different ways. And we're seeing, for example, that the electric bike is really expanding the distance people can go by bicycling. And I can imagine, I came here by bus today, but I can imagine a really fun day from, Portland or Southeast Portland and Milwaukee by electric bike to Oregon City. The proposal for bikes and pedestrians as part of the I-205 project is that bikes and pedestrians will be directed to the shoulder of I-205. That is what ODOT is saying is the bicycle facility. So this area that we're talking about, a lot of I-205 has a separated multi-use path. There's 11 miles that doesn't. This area falls within that 11 miles. And the idea that people will be directed to a 12-foot freeway shoulder really does not seem to be an environment where anyone would actually feel comfortable walking and biking. Today, bikes and pedestrians are not allowed on the Abernathy Bridge. And ODOT is saying because they're not allowed, they don't have to provide for bikes and pedestrians in the future. We think, again, that falls short of the spirit of what the bike bill is intended to do, and that missing this opportunity to get, improvements for cars, but also for bikes and pedestrians to be able to cross the Willamette River is a real shame. And ODOT did study this. There are 7 alternatives. Any one of them would be acceptable to the street trusts and other advocates that have looked at it. What's not acceptable is the idea that someday in the future there will be a separate bridge for bikes and pedestrians. That would be great, but it won't happen. So I'm here to share with you what our opinion is. I'd love to have your feedback on it. You know the geography more than I do. I don't know if you get around much by bike or walking, and would have some perceptions about that. I understand ODOT's budget is constrained, but they are, I believe there will be an action on Thursday at the regional government, JPAC, to include this project in the priorities for the region's federal funding ask. And I believe at the federal level, improvements to for bikes and pedestrians would be decimal dust, and we would be silly not to try and get some real improvements that would make it possible for people to get from, a thriving Oregon City to a thriving West Lynn on these new facilities in a way that's safe and comfortable. So I'm not an expert on these projects, but I accept your questions, comments, and I'd love to also have your support for what we're doing.
Is there a ped bicycle crossing on I-205 over the Columbia River?
Yes, there is.
And would that be an example of maybe what they could do here?
Yes.
Can you describe that to us?
I have ridden that. They built the bridge wide enough to provide a separated path for bikes and pedestrians. It connects to a lot of other, to a freeway adjacent but separated multi-use path.
Where is that?
It goes down the middle.
Pardon me?
It goes down the middle between the north and south lanes.
Yeah.
So it's separated from the main traffic.
Yeah. And I-5 also has a bike facility over the Columbia.
I don't know what the 6 options are. Could you briefly describe them? Are they listed someplace?
So I have the study that was done by HDR. Let's see, I may have to get my glasses. I guess I feel like I would be happy to share this study. I am not, an engineer. I'm relying in part on, the work that was done by the Oregon Bicycle Advisory Committee, where they said that any of these would be acceptable. I can leave this copy here with you
the-
today.
Yeah,
Can we get it to all of us?
yeah.
And
Henry,
the overriding reason was financing was the biggest reason they rejected these.
I think so, yeah. I think they were trying to take to the legislature a project that didn't seem too expensive, in the context of the overall House Bill 2017 Keep Oregon Moving Transportation Project.
so another example, and this may be one of the options they looked at, when ODOT upgraded the two I-84 bridges crossing the Sandy River in Troutdale, there was a huge discussion because we wanted
Yes.
an independent bridge.
Yeah,
Actually, environmental people were against it because there's a lot of sensitive environmental stuff there. Ultimately, they agreed on a 12-foot wide separate lane on the south bridge only, with a big barrier in the middle.
yep,
And they then tied in trails on both ends
Yep.
by going under the bridge in some places and connected to like 1,400 acres out there on the delta. And so, if you work them long enough, maybe you can find a way to do something like that.
that example has been cited as, initially ODOT didn't plan
Right.
a facility, and through advocacy and encouragement and persuasion, they did ultimately expand that project. so
Part of
that
it
bikes
is
could
it
get
connects
across.
with the quote 40-mile loop trail.
Yeah.
Which is much more than 40 miles long,
Yeah.
but at any rate,
Yeah.
it ties into that on the very east side of that whole system.
So what would you expect from us?
Well, I mean, I'm unfamiliar with how this body acts, but in my, one thing you could maybe do is entertain a motion that, asking ODOT to make its best effort to secure funding for bike and pedestrian facilities, or a statement that bike and pedestrian facilities that connect Oregon City and West Lynn would certainly be useful,
Is it,
something like that.
and here, the street trust, if I'm reading this correctly,
Yeah,
either proposing a multi-use path adjacent to I-205 or a multi-use path along Moreland Road. I mean, in terms of getting our support, is that something that you would want support on a specific area, or does vagueness help? Because what you're saying there is pretty broad and pretty vague for, basically we would be saying we like bicycles and that would be about it.
Who do you want us to influence?
well, I mean, one thing that is important to me is I'm going to go to JPACT and on Thursday, and I'm really delighted to have at least shown you all the courtesy to know, like, I'm talking about your community and advocating for cyclists and pedestrians who live here, want to come here, and would travel through here. So if something broad, like, we appreciate hearing about this, we'll follow up with ODOT. I would, again, I haven't seen you in action. I don't know what is typical for you.
Is there a timeline that you're thinking of?
Well, I think that this will go on for some time. This project is not funded. Again, I am going to take the opportunity to ask that it be, if it goes into a federal package, that they expand the scope a little bit to include bikes and pedestrians. And we'll, continue with ODOT. There will be a new director of ODOT. He or she may have a different perspective on the scope of this project as they explore congestion pricing, if that's a mechanism that that helps pay for the project. That might be another opportunity to talk about making it easier for people, especially by bike, who might not be able to afford to pay a toll, or would certainly like to have an alternative, and like, let's reduce the number of cars that are using it and give people a choice as part of a congestion pricing scheme.
One thing I'm trying to figure out is, do we want to do like the short version of motion to say supporting their efforts versus there's a letter of support in the packet that I don't know if we want to sign onto that or edit that in any way. So I don't know what avenue we want to proceed, but there are multiple options that I'm seeing here, and yeah.
I think we need to have a discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things in the letter that we have no jurisdiction over.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
if-
and I hear you that. That was kind of the piece that I had written, working with people who knew more about it, that would sort of provide you with some context. So thanks for looking at it.
If a letter is in order, I have made an alternative that does in fact support this, but is somewhat shorter.
Yeah, terrific.
And so if that is the way that the committee wants to go, I can pass it out for their review. Otherwise, whatever. But
If we don't have a time crunch here, maybe Vance and John Lewis and our speaker here can get together or have a phone conference and talk about what information is available so we can have a decent discussion and what kinds of specific options they might look for us to take action on. So we have it kind of built up so we know what's going on, and we get some guidance that way, then we can mess with the 6 alternatives or whatever they are and make a recommendation.
Pardon my ignorance, but where does the separated bike path on 205 end? In this 11, it goes up to the 11-mile blank.
I believe it ends at Clackamas Town Center.
it-
No, does it go
no,
beyond
it
that?
goes
all the way to
the
Gladstone.
It goes to Gladstone.
Gladstone.
It goes to the
I'm back on that
Gladstone,
All right, yeah. Hey,
the Gladstone exit on
ask the local
205.
expert, yeah.
And then you're pushed onto 82nd Street.
Correct.
And old 82nd Street Bridge. And then there's a pathway through the marsh over to Oregon City Shopping Center, and then you're back on city streets.
That part's not part of the I-205 trail, it's the Clackamas River Trail. It changes names. It's-
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it still is.
But the I-205 trail ends where?
It ends,
At the interchange of Gladstone on
Okay.
205.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's continuous from there all the way across the 205 bridge. There is a pathway
Yeah.
that they direct you on.
Okay.
It's not,
And you get to
Direct.
visit homeless camps on the way.
it's not direct in some places, but
Not to mention sewer pipe.
it is continuous.
So, would you mind if Paul made a comment?
Paul Edgar, Oregon City. To my great surprise, right now in Portland, more people are bike commuting into downtown Portland in peak periods than they're riding light rail. So bike commuting is real, and it's a big deal. But one of the things that issues here too is I've studied bike boulevards as an opportunity and option, and they are wonderful, and they provide a safe route. It's much like what is being proposed on Beaver Creek by the college. But one of the critical issues that we have is Portland Street in Gladstone was part of the old railroad streetcar rail deal, is now the bike path, and it handles a lot of traffic. And the plan was always to have it go across the bridge that Lake Oswego's Public Works, when they put the waterworks in, they diverted water and washed out the pillars to that bridge. And that bridge that was supposed to be the bike bridge across the Willamette River to connect the bike trail is the one that is a real high priority, because that's really flat land, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be coming that way. And if I was to look at some of the priorities to improve bike access and overall access, that would be one of the things we need to really take a look at, because people coming in on the primary access to Oregon City or biking are not going on 205 as much as they are taking that route. And right now, we have to detour them all the way up to cross the old 82nd Bridge and then back down and across. And in reality, that was not part of the plan until that bridge got washed out. And all I could turn around and tell you is yeah, I would, if I were to come back and say, we should be looking at how we connect people across, but maybe the safest or the least expensive way may not be right on the I-205 bridge and that widening, because as they try to widen it, and I've looked at the engineering drawings that they've been proposed, that they're trying to steal as much space as they can off of either side to try to get it and to keep their costs in line, at the same time do the seismic upgrades. It might be even a better approach to look at how are we going to connect West Lynn and Oregon City for pedestrians in the overall view of the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, and how we can create this interconnections. And there could be some options. Again, I believe that you guys need to have an open mind on looking at every option and see what pencils out with the best ROI and something that's going to give the most use, and be a win-win for Oregon City and for all bicyclists. And so I think this should be studied. I don't think it's time to arrive at one recommendation. I think you need to, again, this should be on top of the table, because we've got to be on top of everything with this access of how we get people in and out of Oregon City. And if bike helps, then let's take whatever crumbs we can get. And if walking helps, let's not rule anything out. Anyway, that's my opinion at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further? Anybody? At this point, Vance or Kim, could one of you, or Jason, well, kind of talk back to us what you think we've asked for, so that we can make sure we actually know?
A couple of notes I made, Henry. Early on, there was some discussion about getting some maps of the area with traffic counts. We spoke to that. That is something we can provide at a meeting to discuss the traffic impacts that Mr. Edgar had brought up. And then Mr. Anderson, you had mentioned possibly myself and John Lewis and Jillian to talk. And I think John has spoke with you a few times before, at least once or twice.
Yep.
So there's already a good rapport there, and we'll be happy to do that. Those are the couple things that I took away. If there was anything else?
Henry,
Yes.
I think that this committee doesn't need to know the solution.
No.
Okay? But we need to make recommendation, at least to the city commission, to take action that would be in the cities. These are the things that that we are looking at, and this is some things that the city needs to take this stand. Maybe we make some recommendations that they need to ensure that pedestrian way is looked at, and what the impact of the toll road would be, and what are we going to do about legacy parking. We may not have the answers, but we need to bring that up to them and say, these are genuine concerns that we'll keep looking at, and we advise the city commission to pay attention or to I don't know, that they go ahead and they, I mean, we're their transportation experts, but they need to know, we need to advise them on what's going on.
It does strike me that there is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but it's about time for annual report, isn't it? On what we've done.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So that might be a very good thing to include in that.
Or would it, that annual report, okay? Would it become part of a whole big thing and not have an impact that we'd want it to?
The annual report basically says we did X, Y, and Z over the past year. And when we massage the report, we can lead it in whatever direction we happen to want, because all they want to know is that we're not sitting here wasting time.
That would be the annual report for 2019.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's easy enough to be able to say that, yes, we've accomplished some things. And on the horizon coming up in the future, we see X, Y, and Z as being things that will affect us and will need our discussion and will probably result in some sort of recommendation for your action at a later time.
Would it be appropriate to also ask the commission to give us a little bit of direction of what they're wanting from us on these subjects? Because at the end of the day, we could spend a lot of time debating and deciding and then have them do nothing at all.
It's been my experience that they're not terribly shy about telling us what they would like for us to do. So I would expect them to be able to say, this is something we want you to continue looking into, or for them to say, you know. But it is an avenue that is coming up really soon for us.
Because the city commission is the spokesperson to outside people for this committee.
Correct.
We don't go to outside
No.
agencies ourselves.
So to answer your question, the most we could do is write a letter or make a motion to the city commission that we liked your proposal or whatever.
We have in the past, when it was appropriate, we have issued our own support, which the city commission is very able to say, they overstepped.
I'm not quite sure if we'd be overstepping, because the Clackamas County Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee, they wrote a letter of support for this project without having the county board's approval. So I don't know if it works differently in the city. I'm still learning that process is. But I don't know if it'd be appropriate to at least say, without saying specifics, saying we support their efforts to raise awareness about this, the Tree Trust, with what they're doing. Would that be appropriate for our efforts here?
We don't have a voice like the planning commission or the zoning commission. They speak as a, they are a body that can make decisions.
They have, yes, they can make decisions subject to revision by the city commission. And at this point, I would say that an examination of the city commission's goals would probably include enough leeway to be able to allow us to say that we do support the ability to extend transportation opportunities outside of our region and area when appropriate, as they affect the safety and welfare of the citizens of Oregon City. So I think there's ways to be able to deal with that.
Can I ask a question of Paul? Is there some body that is, has recommendations on the 205 widening toll?
The Clackamas County Transportation Advisory Committee that I've been on in the past has made recommendations, but in there. But the key representative on JPAC is Paul Savas, County Commissioner. And if you're really trying to get some traction and you're trying to present an issue that has merit for the Clackamas County, and particularly, and he's an Oak Grove type resident from unincorporated. Paul is the guy, but I've gone to the JPAC meetings and I'm an invited guest to most of the Metro Council meetings on transportation, and so I get all of the correspondence. And there's a lot of issues right now that are up, they're trying to sort out. And obviously, money is one of the biggest issues, but the I-205 widening project is a priority project that has ratcheted up to a high priority. And part of the problem is the system is breaking down, and there's been, in the last 2 years, there's been a 20% increase in the number of incidents of travel on our high roads and highways. So this rapid change is creating a lot of congestion, and the cost of congestion is now becoming a very, very important factor that's affecting everyone's pocketbooks. And so they're trying to come up with solutions. And all I can say is that it's moving ahead rapidly. 205 might end up being the highest priority project within the state because of some of the problems that they're having. As an example, at the I-84 to I-5 project over there, it's getting a lot of flack, and so it's now moving slowly. So my recommendation to you guys is to tell you that the one project that everyone seems to agree on is I-205, and I think it's going to happen. And I think that we as Oregon City have to get ahead of this issue of diversion and what will happen with value pricing in a toll booth scenario. We have to get ahead of this thing because we are going to be clobbered to death. And if we don't make a statement, that's a statement that I would turn around and say, please put the tolling someplace else or figure it out. But people don't have an option. And its only option is going to be the old bridge. And so I just think you guys, this is one of those types of things, but it's all part of a big picture, and I try to stay ahead of it. And I just look at this one and say, wow, I think this one is going to hurt us probably as much as anything. And because I don't see a lot of people thinking through in long-term planning. So just please,
Thank you, Paul.
Open it up.
And I don't want to prolong this. I highly doubt there will be any kind of toll booth. This will all be automated. You will be required to have an easy pass. There will be cameras that capture your license plate and bill you. And I just want to say that I don't think there will be a booth with the lines and the throwing your quarters in. I don't want people to have that perception of it. And, it may be a different charge, different times of day. The point of it will be to try and get people to make different choices. But they can't do that if there's not a safe and convenient option for them besides driving.
Well, at this point, I'd like to thank you for your time and effort.
Thank you for your time.
I'm sure that probably at the next meeting, we'll have some sort of a thing to work on here. That is to say that I'm sure John's going to have an opinion.
John Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so before we actually, take and put the city staff on point, we probably need to run it by him. So
Well,
again, thank you.
Thank you.
If I can get a copy of the study so I can,
Yeah, sure. And I could send a PDF.
Yeah, if you could send a PDF, that should work out great. Joanne, thank you. Thank you very
I'd
much.
like to make a suggestion.
I heard a request for a suggestion.
Yes, I'd like, for staff, this kind of goes along with what I stated before, see if you can find out the organizations or groups that are studying the transportation impacts of the I-205 expansion and also the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. And let us know who those organizations are, so maybe we could meld into them. What I keep thinking back on is recently, in the last couple of years now, for many years, Oregon City had several different organizations that were working on tourism, but they're all separate organizations. And recently, they've been able to put all those organizations together, and it looks like they may be coming up with a pretty viable plan to organize tourism in Oregon City to Oregon City's advantage. What I'm wondering is, are there several other organizations or groups that are working, maybe studying these transportation issues in relation to I-205 and the Willamette Falls Legacy Project? Maybe our organization could help them come together if we know about them. Just my thoughts on,
Such as having a rep from everyone in the room at the same time.
what a unique idea.
Yeah, yeah. Perhaps we review this 7 options, okay? And we review what Clackamas County, their specific group, has recommended. And we then, if we see parts in that we agree with, or we don't have to just necessarily choose one of the 7 options, okay? Because they're all, from her opinion, they're all viable options. Then we could say, to the city commission, we recommend that we fully support these recommendations that these other people have made. That may be it's not a cop-out, okay, but we don't have to invent the wheel. Is that what you've already written?
Right, so if Clackamas County Transportation Advisory Committee has already done most of this with regard to the 205 project, if we could get the executive summary and a list of the options they looked at, and maybe have a resource person here, we could get up to speed pretty quickly. But anyway, you and Vance, you and John can mull that over and figure out how we can do that.
You bet. Be happy to.
So with that, I think it's time we moved on and to the Public Works report.
Prior to that, so what are we expecting? Are we expecting John and Vance to come back and
Yes.
and give us the
Some
just
more
the
material.
executive summary of those different recommendations?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, so what I heard was, we're tasked with looking at what other organizations, I think, Bob, as you mentioned, are looking at this. One in particular would be Clackamas County, and how they have looked at the I-205 widening project. And again, see if there is an executive summary. I don't know if there is, but if there is a summary like that, we'll try to get our hands on it and be able to.
And what this other plan with their 7 options?
So on the 7 options, is that something that was in Jillian's letter?
I think it's in this document.
These
Yeah.
7 options
Okay.
is,
I wasn't sure what the 7 options were.
it's ODOT's options, they're not street trusts. They're just campaign pushing for those options. ODOT's already said they're not going to consider them, but we are the effort the street trust is trying to do is to maybe reconsider, just like the other, like the I-5 project, the Sandy River crossing, those other ideas that ODOT did not consider them until after there's advocacy for them. And basically this is being used as advocacy, saying the city, if we're open to it, wants to support these projects being included in the I-205 widening project. But currently, right now, ODOT is, they've already said they're not officially going to consider them because, probably mostly because of money. So just want to clarify that is currently not under consideration, but through advocacy, it could be under consideration.
Thank you.
Yes, squeaky wheel.
Okay, Public Works report.
Public Works report, please.
So Mr. Thornburg here is going to start off. He's got two topics he's going to cover. The 5-year pavement maintenance plan, also known as PMOF. And then he's going to speak a little bit about special event traffic control, in particular the Teddy Bear Parade that's coming up, because it has some large impacts on our traffic system. So with that, I'll give it to Jason.
So I guess the first one is the 5-year PMUF plan. And that map got attached, didn't it?
Yes.
I can't, usually I look at Kim's monitor when I'm talking. Yeah, so the green marks you'll see on there, the green lines, that's what we've added. I believe I already at one of the previous meetings showed the slurry seal and chip seal map, which is the red and blue. But the green is going to be our rehab for 2019. And most of the rehab this year, because of the Malala project is eating up a lot of the PMUF funds for the next couple of years. We looked for streets that we could more easily overlay and do some rehab on. So we're doing some effort down in Kenema and Lynn Avenue and doing about $900,000 is all this year on the PMUF. But I just wanted to, now that we have that nailed down, I wanted to bring that up. If anybody has any questions on that or not. The Hazelwood is a project that we put a sewer line in. And now we're, instead of just patching it, big giant patch through a neighborhood, we're just gonna go ahead and rebuild that, not really rebuild the street, but just peel the asphalt off, and the base is good in there, so we're just gonna put new asphalt down. Be a better product for the neighborhood.
And as we've discussed in meetings before, in regards to our overlays and reconstruct projects, when applicable and when there's opportunity present, we do look for ways to put in bike lanes and things of that nature. It doesn't work in every scenario depending on the street, but when we can look at those options, we definitely do. And if we can implement any of those designs, we try to do our best to do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Quick question. So I don't know if this is on the map or not, but you just did a lot of infrastructure work on, is it Center here just across from, that's been all torn up. Is that going to be part of this project or a subsequent year project to do the resurfacing finally?
You know, I
don't
know more about the project than I do. You know, the contractor is still on the hook to repair their trench lines that they made and some damage. I believe that road was in pretty poor condition.
It was.
Before. So I don't know that the city has a whole lot of muscle to make the contractor redo the entire road. But we are certainly going to press a contractor to, you know, frankly, get them to pave as much as we can. And then I don't, maybe Jason knows, I don't know where that falls in the PMUF program moving forward.
Yeah,
We could look it up, but.
I know that they'll be held to the city cut standards, and they'll have to T-cut and replace as they needed. But I don't know if that particular section of Center Street is on the 5-year PMUF plan or not.
Do you have any information on Malala?
On Malala Avenue?
So last week was a 30% plan review. So still pretty high level, not a lot of detail in regards to exact placement of streetlights and street trees, things like that. gosh, there's 3 or 4 new signals. There's a couple of signalized intersections that are being redone, 2 or 3. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact numbers, Henry. And there's a new signal proposed to go in at Fur. There was quite a bit of talk at 30% design meeting about pedestrian access. There are 3 RRFB crosswalks proposed with this project. There was quite a bit of talk on working with the county at the signal at Beaver Creek, Molalla. Different signal timing, possibly some lane changes. So that would be going, if you're coming from Beaver Creek, head 213, that's south. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some talk about the different turning from Beaver Creek, or turning from Malala onto Beaver Creek, changing to
A double left.
dual lefts, and that's all
It
just talk.
sounds almost like it's Moala going south and turning left onto Beaver Creek going out of town.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's the right, yeah.
Other than that, yeah, I attended the meeting, but
So
no real
it-
updates. But they're moving forward.
That's the
fairly
important
quickly.
thing. That we haven't had a stall or anything.
No, it's still moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the good thing. We haven't had a stall. Keep it short, Paul.
They were talking about Kenema, and the number 1 worst road or street in Kenema comes off of South End Road, and it's 5th Avenue, and it's like a bomb craters. And in relationship to any of the other roads in Kenema, they look like pristine highways in relationship to that road. So when we get into prioritization of something that needs to be addressed, John Lewis committed to me many times, I will get to fixing that up soon, next year. And that's been going on for 5 years. And we would love to see if there was any money or any efforts that could be done. Please sometime drive up, take a look at it. Drive down through and by the way, on a side note, there is a cross sign when you're going up South End Road that's kind of points up, it's a 4-way turn there, and they want you to slow down. The average speed going up South End Road at this light, or at the intersection where you go into there in the dog lane that goes back, is about 35 to 40 miles an hour. It's marked at 25. And in reality, when I pull out, or my wife pulls out in a Prius, and we get all those squirrels working, driving that Prius, it's hard to get through that intersection and not get T-boned. Okay, the speed on South End Road coming into there, and that's a county road at that intersection. But it's unsafe, period. And then the road going down through there is terrible. And you're driving into the Oregon City's historic, National Register Historic District, and the imagery of it for tourists and for anybody on it is crazy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure that staff will be looking into that.
There's been, John's asked me to look into that this year. And I've already have a big list that I've committed to, but I told John if I get through my committed list, that's the first road that's on my non-committed list right now. So,
Actually, it keeps the speeds down.
This is not
Silver
an
lining.
approved speed
Park your car in the middle
device.
of the road, Paul.
So are we now on the teddy bear parade?
yeah, so the Teddy Bear Parade is coming up, I forget the exact date, May 20-something, I want to say. And it's a pretty big package with a lot of maps that show the entire route with the detour and everything that's involved there. The route's going to be starting between 10th and 7th on Main Street and going to 14th, and then hanging a right, headed to Washington, and then going down Washington to the end of the Oregon Trail. It's been doing that for, I think this is the third year. It used to go right down Main Street, but when the roundabout construction happened, they changed it to the end of Oregon Trail, and whoever, the Lions Club, I believe, the ones that's in charge, they really like the end of Oregon Trail, so that's where it's been going for the last
And when
3
is
years.
the Teddy Bear Parade again?
It's in May. Sorry.
May
I don't have it
20
exactly.
something. Unfortunately, I don't remember.
I kind of wanted Jason to speak a little bit about, not so much specifically the Teddy Bear Parade, but we just picked on this one because it's coming up soon and it has some pretty drastic impacts to our downtown area. And just to, I don't know how much or little the committee is familiar with what Public Works does for many of these parades. This is a good example of a parade that takes quite a bit of resources from Public Works, quite a bit of resources from the police department. As Jason alluded to, the last 2 or 3 years, they've been doing the route that you see on the maps down 14th. Historically, the Teddy Bear Parade would go down Main and continue out Main Street, out the extension, and end up in Clackmont Park. We are going to approach the organizers of the parade, and it's too late to do it this year, so we're going to have them go down 14th like they wanted to. But we would really like to see them go back to their old route, which was down Main Street into Clackamas Park. We realize that the Cove Phase 2 is coming on board, but it's a Saturday parade. We feel confident that we can get the contractors working on that project to cease operations for about an hour while the parade goes by on a Saturday. The biggest reason being is much, much less impact to the motoring public, substantially. Less resources on our end to the tune of at least 1 or 2 Public Works personnel and their vehicles. The police department, if we were to go back to the Main Street route, would also not be required to staff as heavily. 1 to 2 officers there also. So again, this is not looking for any, real thoughts or anything. If you have some, I'd love to hear them, but I just kind of want to make you guys aware of some of these things that Public Works does in a good way. We're happy to do it, and Jason and his crew have been doing these for several years. They do it at a very high level, and they do a very good job in conjunction with the police department to keep people safe and traffic, flowing as best as they can. But it is a bit taxing on Public Works.
Have you considered the impact of the new Cove apartments in relation to the original route?
As it pertains to running a parade through there,
Yes.
we have pretty small impacts to the apartments. Frankly, with all those apartments there, you could argue that there's a whole bunch of people that live in those apartments that might enjoy getting out on their balcony and watching the parade go by. As long as the 3rd story ones don't throw teddy bears down from the 3rd story. But yes, we did have that discussion. It's certainly not in stone yet, but it is something that I think we're going to push for moving forward.
It certainly has been going on for a long time.
I hear it's very popular. This will be
Yes.
my first year.
Is there anything else you?
Yes, just 2 other items I want to touch on very briefly. The vehicle registration fee, February 21st, that was adopted through the county commission. I don't know, I believe you gentlemen are probably very familiar with the numbers, but here's the numbers in a nutshell. It's $15 a year for motorcycles, $30 a year for vehicles, for cars and pickups. Of the funds collected by the county, 40% is distributed to the cities within Clackamas County. They distribute that money by population. Oregon City, we're at 34,240. In the numbers from the county, that equates to $690,807 that will come to Oregon City. So this is still out a little bit yet. John, I spoke with him a little bit about this for a little info. There's potential, it could be referred to the voters. That's unknown yet. That is something that could happen. Oregon City doesn't have a specific list of projects and roads at this time, but some of the things that we have been thinking about, how to use this money for some safe routes to school projects, certainly capacity projects within Oregon City city limits, opening up some of our roadways to help some of our more congested areas. And also some projects identified in the TSB that are partially SDC funded, but maybe are lacking in that funding a little bit.
I'm sure we all have opinions on where some of that money should be used by category.
Absolutely, and John and I discussed, this is a perfect opportunity for the city to get feedback from the TAC committee on things that you folks have observed, been told about, have talked about, or things that have been brought to you by citizens. And it would be a great time to have those discussions.
Perhaps we could have that at an early date so that it can be worked out and be put before the commission.
Yeah. Oh, one thing, sir, I did not get word on, I don't know the timing of this. I don't know at this point when Oregon City can expect to see this money come in. Obviously, it's going to be a year or two because the county has to implement this decision, collect the money, and then divvy it up.
As I understand it, and I could easily be wrong because I wasn't paying that much attention when I heard it, but my understanding is that they're going to start collecting it on the 1st of June of this year.
That would make sense, coinciding with fiscal.
Yeah, and of course, it's going to go through Oregon Department of Revenue. And so they'll take a cut and it'll come back. So it'll be a year, probably 18 months before you see the first, if anything.
Right. And unknown yet if the county will divvy up or dole out these funds incrementally. Will they wait to the end of a fiscal year and give all the cities within Clackamas County the money? That's
I rather
unknown yet.
doubt that the state will give it to Clackamas County before anytime soon.
Right. There is that component also.
I believe, isn't this related to the new county advisory committee that they created for unincorporated areas for roads? I saw some email like a couple weeks ago about they're requesting applicants for this new advisory committee for areas in unincorporated county to use, I think it's for this funding source. So if they're already getting an advisory committee together for identifying which road projects to use for that, then it sounds like we should be probably planning the same timeline as they are. So, and I think that email just sent out like a month ago. So just saying, I don't think we need to wait a year because it sounds like the county is already preparing for it like this year. So,
Right. Yeah, I wasn't inferring this committee needs to wait a year. It's more unknown when the funds are going to come in.
Okay.
Certainly the discussions about what roads, what types of things does the city want to address first? Is it safe routes to school? Is it congestion issues, things like that? Certainly, Ray, I think those discussions are going to happen sooner than later. Yep.
Well, I think tied in with safe routes to schools would be the subject which I brought up when this was first mentioned several months ago, is sidewalks. A lot of people talk to me about sidewalks or lack thereof.
Right. And what'll be interesting, sir, is if it may depend on the language of how the money can be spent. There are certainly some funding sources that allow you to put in sidewalks. Sometimes there's not. Certainly, if we do almost any kind of work to an existing road, other than a slurry seal, which this money is not going to be used for that type of maintenance, that triggers ADA. So right there, you're at the very least tackling the ADA ramps and making it compliant. So that'll be an interesting thing to see if these funds can be used for, one, rehabilitating existing sidewalks. If anything, if I had to guess, and it's really just a guess, I must admit, if there are no sidewalks, these funds may be able to be used for that more easily, which would be great.
Improving pedestrian,
Right.
yeah.
So perhaps this committee could recommend that when these funds are available, that they be applied towards this type of project.
That's the intent of the discussion that we're having right now.
Yep. All right. Any other questions on that topic? Okay, lastly, just a brief update, National Night Out, August 6th. It's a Tuesday evening. It's going to be held at the end of the Oregon Trail. Myself, I think, Kim, you were there? Were you in that meeting? It was myself, Pam, and John Lewis, Kim. We met just to kind of brainstorm. We at the city, if we're going to be involved with any event, and in this case, National Night Out, we want it to be meaningful. We don't want to just have a table with some pamphlets. So we kind of brainstormed, we batted around a few different things, and where we ended up is we would like to do something around bicycle safety. The police department is also thinking about doing something around bicycle safety for National Night Out. So, that's our intent at this point. I reached out to some coworkers of mine at the city of Tigard because I knew that the city of Tigard a year or two ago, through some grant funding with the Safe Routes to School coordinator, they were able to buy a really neat covered trailer. I think it's 8 feet wide by 20 feet long that totes around a whole bunch of kids' bicycles and helmets and cones and traffic control devices to set up courses at schools and parking lots so the kids can have an experience and learn some bicycle safety. And I was successful in, if we end up going this route, I can utilize this trailer for this event. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. It pays to have good connections.
Yes.
And so that's where we, the city, and the police department are thinking about going for National Night Out. If this happens, we're going to take a fairly large footprint down there as far as real estate. We will need some help from
Several people.
and I thought, what better way for the Traffic Advisory Committee would be than to engage citizens than at a function like this around transportation. And I think it'd be a good opportunity
I do too. During our break,
during your break.
well, we normally, July and August, we don't meet.
It could be an impromptu meeting in August, early August.
Yeah. I would, on Neighborhood Night Out, when we had the subcommittee a while back, I had expressed a viewpoint that I think might be applicable here in more of a display sense than anything else, but pointing out that everything Public Works does in all of its various aspects involves public safety. Your sewers, your water, your streets, anything, all of that. Street sweeping, all of the various things, and I think that it would be good to kind of build this awareness that Public Works is also a public safety agency, even if it's not thought of as one.
You bet. That's a good thought, and I absolutely concur with that sentiment. I haven't told John Lewis this, but he's going to see it on the recording.
Right.
So I have an idea, if I may. When I was at the city of Tigard, I helped facilitate Public Works Days in conjunction with National Public Works Week. And to carry on your point, sir, about making people aware of what Public Works does, the concept of how Public Works is involved with the safety of all those things you mentioned, that's a great time and opportunity for municipalities to have a function, to put on a mini Public Works Day, if you will. So in Tigard, during that week, we would take whatever Saturday beginning or following that week, Typically, we'd have it at Tigard Library. We'd get half dozen pieces of equipment, usually the shiny new stuff that the city got. Have operators there, open to the public, really, really well attended, very kid-friendly, really frankly, specifically geared towards children. But they're very successful. And, my intent was, I don't know if I can pull it off this year, but I'd like to approach John and see if that's something we can do. Again, maybe not necessarily traffic advisory committee worthy, but I'm kind of excited about it, and I'd like to do something like that, and I've done it before. So I think it'd be a real boon to Oregon City Public Works. And again, not to mention the safety aspect, but just being able, it's another way that Public Works can kind of tell our story, right, to the citizens and show them what we do. And we've had, they're very successful.
I make a motion that we fully support Vance in his Public Works Day.
Second.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Been moved and seconded. Shall we vote or any discussion? I'm voting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? You have our support.
Fantastic. Now, see, John can't get on me too bad. I'll say, John, the committee. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's all we've got from Public Works.
Okay. Any communications anybody wish to share about anything pertinent? Good of the order? Hearing none. Any future agenda items?
I can probably coordinate with Clackamas County on their new transportation safety plan. I'm not sure what the exact title is, but the county approached me, I think, a month or two ago about presenting to the committee to get feedback on their planning process. I know the county adopted the plan, I think, last month or this month. So the plan's already adopted, it's just a matter of implementing it. So I just wanted to raise awareness about it. And I know last month that I sort of, for this agenda, sort of got things on it last minute. So hopefully this time preparing more in advance to get things on the agenda in a more proper manner. So just wanted to make that vocal and yeah.
And I would suggest at the earliest opportunity, getting the necessary information to Kim and Vance and John so that it can be included at proper time.
Okay, will do.
Anything else? Hearing nothing? Ready for adjournment? This meeting is adjourned.